June 4th, 1944. The Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly beneath a pale morning sky, the waves rolling like slow breathing beneath the hulls of the US Navy Task Group. A quiet wind moved across the decks of the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal, brushing against the sailors who had spent weeks chasing shadows in waters known for swallowing convoys whole. They believed today would be another long day of scanning, listening, and waiting for something that always lurked but rarely appeared. But none of them knew that within hours they would be part of a moment that would shock the entire German Kriegsmarine. Captain Daniel V. Gallery, commander of the hunter-killer group, stepped out onto the bridge. He carried himself with a mix of calm confidence and restless purpose. "Another quiet morning, sir," an ensign remarked. Gallery nodded but didn't smile. He had hunted U-boats for a long time now, long enough to learn that quiet usually meant one thing: something was hiding. "Quiet seas make noisy enemies," Gallery replied. "Keep your ears sharp. U-boats like to sleep during calm weather." His officers exchanged looks. Gallery wasn't joking. He genuinely believed this ocean had moods, and today it felt tense. Below deck, radiomen sat with headphones pressed tight, listening to static. Sonar teams aboard the destroyer escorts, USS Chatelaine, Pillsbury, Pope, Flaherty and Jenks, scanned the deep for the faintest echo. The machines clicked, hummed, and whispered. The ocean answered with silence. Near the carrier's aircraft elevator, two sailors, Robbins and Carter, leaned against a stack of tied-down equipment, sipping coffee. "You think we'll get lucky today?" Robbins asked. Carter shrugged. "Lucky? No. But Captain Gallery? He's not the luck type. He's the stubborn type. If there's a U-boat anywhere within 100 miles, he'll drag it out by its tail." Robbins grinned. "You sound scared of him." Far beneath the waves, another world existed. U-505, a Type 1C German submarine, drifted in the deep blue darkness like a wounded animal. Captain Harold Lang, a stern and weary officer, stood inside the cramped control room, gripping a steel rail as he listened to the hum of the engines and the quiet breathing of his crew. He hated this mission. He hated this ocean. But most of all, he hated the feeling that something was hunting them. "Depth reading steady," his chief officer reported. "Good," Lang muttered. "Maintain silence. We're blind here. And blind men die 9. U-505 was already damaged from earlier attacks. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to weaken confidence. The crew felt it. The submarine felt it. Even Lang felt it. And while he maintained a cold expression, deep inside, he carried a fear he would never show to his men. The fear that they would never see Germany again. Above them, aboard the Guadalcanal, the morning continued quietly, until it didn't. At 11:09 a.m., a sharp buzz cut through the carrier's speakers. Sonar contact. A distinct echo. Something large, something metallic, something moving. The call came from the destroyer escort USS Chatelaine. "Bridge, this is sonar. Strong contact. Bearing 212. Range decreasing." Alarm bells clanged across the carrier. The entire task group came alive in seconds. Engines roared, waves hissed against hulls. Pilots climbed into cockpits as deck crews waved them forward. Robbins and Carter, caught mid-conversation, dropped their cups and ran to their positions. "I told you," Carter yelled. "Today felt wrong," Robbins shouted back. "Of all the days to be right, why'd it have to be this one?" From the air, two planes launched, circling the ocean, searching for the slightest disturbance, an oily patch, a periscope ripple, anything. The destroyer escorts moved fast, forming a lethal semicircle around the Echo. Inside U-505, The situation turned from tense to deadly. Captain Lang felt the pressure change in the water. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Sound reports? He snapped. The sonar operator listened, eyes widening. Herr Kapitän. Screws approaching fast. Multiple ships. A chill ran through the submarine. Lang's face darkened. Silent running. Take us deeper. But it was too late. The Americans had him locked. Back on the surface, USS Shetland prepared its first attack run. Fire depth charges. The ocean thundered. Explosions ripped through the water, blasting sound waves through the deep. Men on the carrier felt the deck tremble. Pilots in the air saw plumes of white spray burst upward like geysers. Inside U-505, chaos erupted. Red lights flickered, pipes shook. Men were thrown off their feet. A young sailor screamed as equipment fell from overhead racks. Damage report, Lange bellowed. Minor flooding in stern compartments. Electrical failure in engines. We're losing depth control. Another explosion slammed the hull. The lights went out completely, and in that instant, Lang made the decision that would shock Germany. Surface! He shouted. Surface, immediately! We can't stay down here! The submarine burst upward through the waves like a steel whale breaking free. Sunlight flooded the conning tower as German sailors scrambled onto the deck, white flags waving frantically. The Americans stared in disbelief. Robbins froze. Carter, are they surrendering? Gallery's jaw tightened. Yes. Move boarding teams immediately. Aboard the destroyer escort USS Pillsbury, Lieutenant Albert David gathered 6 sailors. They checked pistols, grabbed fire extinguishers, and prepared to leap into history. David looked at his men. She's flooding, she could blow, and she might go under any second. Anyone who wants to back out can do so now. No one moved. David nodded. Good. Let's go get ourselves a U-boat. The small boat hit the waves hard, bouncing violently as it sped toward the drifting submarine. Smoke poured from U-505's vent holes. Water rushed across her deck. Carter watched from afar and muttered, God help them. That thing looks like it wants to die. When Lieutenant David climbed onto U-505's hull, he felt the steel vibrating beneath his boots. The submarine was trying to sink. David's flashlight beam scanned the compartment. Find every charge, every valve, save this boat. Above them, Gallery watched in stunned silence. He knew the Germans would never believe what was happening. A U-boat captain surrendering. A U-boat captured intact. Hitler's navy would be humiliated. And so, Part 1 ends with the boarders deep inside U-505, racing against flooding water, explosive charges, and time itself, trying to seize a submarine that the Germans believed could never be taken alive. April 10, 1943. The cold, grey waters of the English Channel stretched endlessly beneath a sky heavy with clouds. HMS Argus and its convoy of American and British ships moved cautiously, hulls slicing through swells. Radio operator Thomas Kane adjusted the dials, listening for any crackle that could hint at danger. He believed every signal he sent could save hundreds of lives, a fragile lifeline against the lurking menace of U-boats. Waves pounded the sides of the ship, and the spray soaked the deck. Men clung to rails and ropes, faces pale from seasickness and tension. The convoy had already lost 2 ships to Wolfpack attacks last month. Thomas adjusted the headphones, tapping out messages to nearby vessels, coordinating movements to avoid known submarine zones. He believed that each transmission could prevent another massacre, guiding ships safely through treacherous waters. The officer on deck peered through binoculars, scanning the horizon for the faint silhouette of an enemy submarine. Clouds merged with mist, hiding danger in plain sight. Thomas listened intently to static and clicks over the radio, translating signals into instructions for convoys ahead. He believed that every word, every carefully coded phrase could tip the balance, saving the men whose lives depended on vigilance and the unseen guidance of the signal. The night brought deeper shadows. Cold wind whipped across the decks, chilling the men to the bone. Thomas hunched over the radio, sweat mixing with sea spray on his forehead. Every transmission was an act of courage. Every message carried the lives of sailors and soldiers. He believed that precision mattered more than anything, that a misstep could lead to disaster, and that steadfastness in darkness could save the lives of hundreds. The sonar operator shouted suddenly, and the crew stiffened. A blip on the screen, a possible U-boat, passed across the sonar. Depth charges were prepared. Thomas's fingers flew over the key, sending signals to nearby ships to alter course. He believed in the connection between his tiny radio station and the larger battle, that his vigilance could prevent a catastrophe and guide convoys safely past the silent hunters beneath the waves. A sudden explosion rocked the water nearby. A ship in the convoy had been hit, the hull splitting with a terrifying groan. Smoke and spray erupted, and shouts rang out. Thomas tapped even faster, sending coordinates and warnings to the rest of the convoy. He believed that his messages could save others, that the wolves beneath the waves could be outmaneuvered, and that courage, vigilance, and skill could still prevail in this deadly dance. The wounded were brought on deck, faces pale, limbs trembling. Medics moved quickly, shouting instructions. Thomas watched silently, fingers never stopping. He believed that even small actions, transmitted through dots and dashes, could mean life or death. The radio was his weapon, precision his shield, and his belief in its importance kept him steady amidst chaos and the unrelenting rhythm of the sea. Morning broke in pale light. The convoy continued, battered but still moving. The horizon remained grey, waves threatening but manageable. Thomas leaned back briefly, rubbing his eyes. He believed that survival was possible, that the signals sent through the night had guided his comrades past danger, and that even amidst fear, determination, skill, and faith could shape the fate of men hundreds of miles from home. Throughout the day, the convoy maintained formation. Each ship kept a vigilant eye, sonar scanning constantly, lookouts watching for periscopes or torpedoes. Thomas tapped out messages at intervals, sharing sightings, coordinating maneuvers, and confirming positions. He believed in the chain of communication, that each signal strengthened the convoy's chance of survival, that connection and precision were the only shields against the hidden underwater threat. The afternoon brought a fog bank, thick and suffocating, reducing visibility to mere meters. Ships slowed, alarms on high alert. Thomas's eyes darted between screens and dials, translating radio signals from distant vessels. He believed that clarity of mind and careful attention could cut through the fog, that vigilance and steadfastness could navigate them through danger, and that even in the grey haze, hope could persist. The sea was merciless. Waves slashed across decks. Drenched men shivered in soaked uniforms. A U-boat attack was possible at any moment. Thomas continued tapping messages, each signal a thread in the fabric of survival. He believed that his steadfast work, though invisible, could guide convoys past destruction, that his courage and focus were vital, and that lives depended on each calculated keystroke he transmitted. By evening, the convoy had navigated past the most dangerous sectors. Ships had taken minor hits, some crew injured, but the fleet remained mostly intact. Thomas allowed himself a short breath, heart racing from the near misses. He believed in the power of human skill and coordination. that every message sent through the dark, stormy night had contributed to survival, and that hope remained a guiding force amidst fear and relentless danger. The sun set slowly over a still grey sea, casting long shadows across steel decks. Sailors huddled for warmth, exhausted but alive. Thomas continued transmitting updates to London, his hands stiff but precise. He believed that each dot and dash, each signal sent through radio waves had saved lives, and that courage, precision, and vigilance could endure, shaping destiny even in the chaos of the Atlantic. May 5, 1944. Dawn broke over the English Channel, painting the waves in pale grey and silver. The convoy, battered but steadfast, approached the staging area near the Normandy coast. Ships creaked and groaned as waves pushed against their hulls. Thomas Kane, now exhausted from nearly a month at sea, tapped out final transmissions with trembling fingers, believing every signal could guide men safely to shore. The horizon held faint silhouettes of landing craft and supply vessels awaiting orders. Thomas's eyes flicked between his radio screens and the swells outside. Every ship in the convoy depended on precise timing, coordination, and intelligence. He believed that his work could prevent chaos, that each transmission could be the difference between life and death for hundreds of soldiers who would soon disembark into the unknown. Below deck, sailors secured cargo, checked weapons, and readied landing gear. The smell of diesel, oil, and salt filled every compartment. Thomas moved quickly between stations, ensuring communications were clear, signals accurate. He believed that even in these final hours, precision mattered more than ever, that the invisible web of radio signals could protect his comrades and guide them to a safe landing. The wind rose suddenly, whipping spray across decks and soaking uniforms. Waves pounded relentlessly, but the convoy held formation. Thomas's fingers ached from constant transmission, but he did not stop. Each dot and dash was a lifeline, each message a prayer. He believed that courage, focus, and vigilance could endure the storm, and that men depended on his calm in the midst of chaos. A lookout shouted from the bridge, a periscope, a shadow beneath the waves. The crew tensed, eyes scanning the dark swells. Thomas tapped urgently into the radio, sending warnings, coordinating evasive maneuvers, and relaying coordinates. He believed that his signals could outpace the enemy, guide ships safely past threats, and save lives in a battle that would soon extend far beyond the horizon. The sun climbed higher, cutting through the lingering fog. Landing craft in the distance waited silently, decks lined with men and equipment. Thomas breathed slowly, remembering messages sent for weeks, intelligence on U-boat positions, convoy instructions, weather updates. He believed that his months of vigilance had prepared this moment, that skill, courage, and persistence could shape outcomes far beyond the reach of a single man. Storm clouds gathered again as the convoy approached the staging waters. Men shivered, soaked through, eyes alert. Thomas continued transmitting, translating intelligence into commands that would guide ships to the proper positions. He believed in the power of communication, that radio waves could protect men facing the unknown, that his determination could influence survival even in the face of relentless uncertainty. Explosions rang out suddenly. A distant U-boat attack nearby sent water and smoke into the air. Crew members scrambled to man weapons, fire flares, and sound alarms. Thomas's hands moved with urgency, sending precise instructions to avoid the torpedoes. He believed that every signal mattered, that vigilance and skill could avert disaster, and that courage could endure even when steel and water threatened to consume all. The convoy pressed forward, the coastline drawing nearer with every passing hour. Waves continued to batter hulls, but formation held. Thomas's mind raced through signals, maps, and coordinates, ensuring each ship was aligned for the final approach. He believed that focus and precision could defy the chaos, that the hundreds of men relying on his messages would reach the shore alive, and that months of preparation had led to this critical moment. By mid-afternoon, the staging area was in sight, anchored landing craft, supply ships, and waiting troops. Thomas allowed himself a brief glance at the horizon, imagining men readying for the assault that would change the war. He believed that the radio signals he had sent, the warnings he had relayed, and the coordination he had maintained had helped preserve lives, guiding men through danger toward a moment of destiny. A storm rose suddenly, dark clouds rolling in from the northwest. Waves crashed over the sides, soaking decks and rattling equipment. Thomas continued his transmissions, unwavering despite exhaustion and cold. He believed that even in these final hours, vigilance, skill, and courage mattered, that the unseen threads of communication could influence outcomes, and that his dedication could shape the survival of hundreds. The convoy edged closer to the embarkation points. Men prepared landing gear, checked weapons, and secured supplies. Thomas tapped signals tirelessly, coordinating with nearby vessels to ensure alignment, timing, and safety. He believed that every message mattered, that his steadfast work could prevent missteps, and that courage, precision, and connection could carry men through the final hours before action. Shadows stretched across the water as evening approached. The channel grew restless, waves tossing smaller ships. Thomas's fingers flew across the key, relaying coordinates, warning of hazards, and confirming positions. He believed that every decision, every transmission could save lives, and that the quiet heroism of vigilance and accuracy was as essential as courage on the battlefield. June 5, 1944. Darkness blanketed the Normandy coastline. The convoy, battle-worn but steadfast, floated silently on restless waves. Soldiers huddled on deck, gear secured, weapons ready. Thomas Kane adjusted the radio one final time, sending critical coordinates to command. He believed that each transmission could prevent disaster, guide men safely, and shape the success of the invasion that would decide the war. The air smelled of salt, oil, and anticipation. Waves lashed the sides of ships, and men tightened straps across chests and shoulders. Officers moved through the ranks, issuing last instructions. Thomas tapped out messages at a furious pace, coordinating positions, timing, and signaling hazards. He believed that even in this final night, precision, vigilance, and courage could avert catastrophe and guide the soldiers to safety. Landing craft awaited their orders. Men checked weapons, secured packs, and whispered silent prayers. The roar of the channel filled the ears, the occasional splash or creak a reminder of the danger surrounding them. Thomas listened intently, hands flying over the key. He believed that each dot and dash sent through radio waves carried hope, warning, and life itself, that hundreds depended on his concentration in the darkness. The sky remained heavy with clouds. A faint glow of dawn was hours away, and the waves showed no mercy. Boats rocked violently, metal groaning with tension. Thomas's voice remained calm over the radio, steadying crews with transmitted instructions. He believed that steadfastness, clarity, and careful coordination could overcome fear, that invisible threads of communication could guide men to the shores awaiting them. A lookout shouted, signaling a distant shadow beneath the waves, an enemy submarine, possibly a final threat before the assault. Depth charges were prepped, crew braced. Thomas transmitted warnings with urgent precision, his mind racing through charts, previous attacks, and convoy positions. He believed that even a single accurate message could save dozens of lives, that vigilance and courage could steer them through the final moments of peril. Men murmured prayers and exchanged brief nods, faces pale in the faint light. Soldiers imagined their families far away, letters written, promises left unsent. Thomas tapped steadily, eyes scanning dials, relaying messages to every ship. He believed that hope, perseverance, and unbroken attention could endure the tension of the night, that his unseen work could secure their passage into history and across the channel. The convoy edged closer to landing points. Officers signaled final positions. Soldiers adjusted packs, checked weapons, and gripped rifles with white-knuckled hands. Thomas's radio emitted soft clicks and hisses as he relayed intelligence, guided formations, and confirmed coordinates. He believed that accuracy, calm, and courage could make the difference, that survival, planning, and precision were intertwined in these final hours. The horizon darkened as waves swelled higher. Boats creaked, splashed, and rocked violently. Soldiers whispered encouragement, offered brief smiles, and exchanged quiet gestures of solidarity. Thomas continued sending instructions, coordinating movements, and warning of potential hazards. He believed that every message mattered, that his work linked hundreds of lives to safety, and that diligence and bravery could influence destiny in ways unseen. Midnight passed slowly. The wind howled, salt spray stung faces, and the channel tested resolve. Thomas's body ached from hours at the radio, eyes strained, hands numb. Yet he believed that his vigilance could prevent disaster, that the coordination he maintained would carry men to shore safely, and that courage, skill, and unbroken attention were as vital as any weapon in the fight to come. As dawn approached, the first faint glow touched the waves. Soldiers tensed, bracing for the landing. Thomas sent the final transmissions confirming positions, warning of hazards, and coordinating timing with assault craft. He believed that these last messages, sent through storm and darkness, could save countless lives, preserve order, and ensure that the invasion could begin as planned. The channel seemed endless, yet landing craft lined up along the horizon, waiting for the order to storm the beaches. Soldiers gripped rifles, hearts pounding, breaths shallow. Thomas's voice and radio signals guided them, a silent hand ensuring cohesion and safety. He believed that courage, precision, and communication could carry men into the unknown, that hope could be transmitted across steel, water, and fear. Sunlight broke slowly over the channel. Waves reflected pale gold, illuminating anxious faces. Thomas continued transmitting, final coordinates aligning with assault plans. Soldiers exchanged tense nods, murmuring prayers and farewells. He believed that his months of vigilance had prepared them, that every transmission could mean the difference between life and death, and that the convoy's success rested on both courage and careful coordination. The first boats received orders, engines thrumming beneath the decks. Men adjusted helmets, checked weapons, and gripped packs. Thomas tapped last messages, guiding each vessel to its position, ensuring that timing and formation were flawless. He believed that his work, though unseen, was crucial, that precision, perseverance, and bravery could protect lives and set the stage for the turning point of the war. Families on distant shores would never know the quiet heroism of the radio operators guiding men through darkness. Yet Thomas believed in the unseen connection, the invisible threads of safety carried through each signal. Soldiers braced, landing craft engines hummed, and the channel held its breath. The invasion would begin soon, but every life depended on vigilance, courage, and the careful, steadfast work that had led them here. By morning, the first assault craft left the staging area, engines roaring, soldiers holding weapons tightly, eyes forward. Thomas tapped the final messages, eyes reflecting both hope and exhaustion. He believed that precision, courage, and determination could endure, that his signals could guide men safely, and that the sacrifices made across the Channel would shape history forever. The sun rose fully, casting light over the Normandy coastline. Soldiers in the first landing craft braced, waves slapping steel hulls, hearts pounding. Thomas leaned back briefly, watching the horizon, believing that his work had mattered, that the signals sent through darkness and danger had preserved lives, and that courage, hope, and determination would carry men into the history they were about to make. The convoy had crossed, the landing began, and the first step toward liberation of Europe was underway. Thomas's hands finally stilled, but his heart raced with the knowledge that lives were in motion, guided by every precise transmission. He believed, without question, that bravery, vigilance, and careful preparation had made history possible, and that the echoes of these moments would endure forever in memory.